Well, good evening, Beaumont. Glad to have all of you on the show tonight. Well, Minnesota and its officials have been under fire in recent weeks after a City Journal investigation revealed literally billions of taxpayer dollars were stolen during the administration of Governor Tampon Tim Walz. Democrat state officials overseeing one of the most generous welfare regimes in the country apparently are asleep at the switch, and the media, duty-bound by progressive pieties, refuse to connect the dots. Why? Well, because they're Democrats and because they want to do anything they can to destroy America and force us into that wonderful globalist one-world government. Well, now we know why the Democrat governor, why the Democrats in power in the state of Minnesota have not stopped it. They're afraid they're going to offend a core voting bloc for Democrats, and that is the Somalian immigrant community. Now you say, wait a minute, it's illegal for non-citizens to vote. Well, evidence shows that so far that's just one of the many frauds with child care facilities set up around the community, and their subsequent claims have distributed many, many more daycare services or allegedly served meals that they got government checks for but never actually provided anything. Estimates are now that these schemes cost Minnesota taxpayers billions of dollars. It may be much higher. Worse than that, a lot of this money is going back to Somalia and is funding al-Shabaab, an Islamic terrorist group that is over there killing Christians by the hundreds. Already the U.S. Treasury, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and Housing and Urban Development are investigating, but a new online organization was revealed by Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, reading a memo from that Democrat administration about why the investigation has not been pursued. The fraud investigator in the Minnesota Attorney General's office said this: "There is a perception, I'm quoting now, that forcefully tackling this issue would cause political backlash from the Somali community, and this is a core voting bloc for Democrats." The reporting organization said, seriously, how are Democrats not getting raided and thrown in prison? According to the Gateway Pundit, this memo makes the situation very clear. Washington Free Beacon also documented that 79% of Minnesota voters think fraud in state programs is either the biggest or at least a major problem in their state, and only 14% think Tampon Tim did enough to stop the fraud. And this is according to a Monday survey at KSTP. In total, 92% of the respondents identified fraud as the problem, and 92% of the 92%, 25% said it was the biggest problem they had in the state, and 54% called it at least a major problem. There was only 13% of the people that thought it was a minor problem. 69% of respondents said Tampon Tim needs to do more to stop the fraud in Minnesota. Prosecutors have so far charged dozens of fraudsters and obtained dozens of convictions, but it recently came to light after a group of mostly Somali immigrants set up fraudulent charities, Feeding Our Future, one of them, and stole money from the federal child nutrition program. Federal investigations into the scheme, which have already led to 78 indictments, uncovered many other similar Somali-led fraud schemes in Minnesota. White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy Stephen Miller has confirmed that the welfare fraud scandal in Minnesota centered around the Somali aliens and could be the greatest financial fraud in the history of the United States. Miller charged that the records showed 90% of Somali households with children are on federal welfare of one form or another. The real number is probably 100% because federal records always undercount. And you're talking about a population that has been imported into Minnesota, in which virtually every single member of the population is receiving welfare from a federal government program. This could very well end up being the greatest financial fraud, a scandal, if you will, in American history. Already, state employees have accused Governor Tim Walz of joining Kamala Harris on the Democrats' failed 2024 presidential ticket of engaging in systemic retaliation against anybody who could be called a whistleblower for pointing out the frauds and the schemes they saw. Tampon Tim, meanwhile, has promised to welcome even more Somalians to his state. This is a criminal act, if you ask me. Something must be done. We hope something will be done, but the truth is, there are so many criminals and so little justice. I don't know if anything's ever going to be done about this, but it should at the very least anger you, and if nothing else, make you glad you live in Texas.
Texas is massive. In fact, if it were an independent country, it would be larger than any nation in Europe, except for Russia. Driving from Orange County on Texas's eastern border all the way to El Paso on the western border covers around 860 miles. That's roughly the same distance as driving from Paris, France to Belgrade, Serbia. Here's another surprising fact. If you draw a line from El Paso to Orange County and move that line west, you'll see that El Paso is actually closer to Los Angeles than it is to Orange County, Texas. Texas spans approximately 800 miles from east to west and 790 miles from north to south, giving it a land area of around 268,000 square miles. For more perspective, the town of Dalhart in the Texas Panhandle is about 485 miles from Austin, the state capital. But Dalhart is actually closer to 6 other state capitals: Oklahoma City, Santa Fe, Denver, Topeka, Lincoln, and Cheyenne than it is to Austin. And if you were to lay Texas over Europe, it would stretch from the eastern border of France, cover Belgium and the Netherlands, cross Germany, and extend into Poland. Texas isn't just big, it's a true giant.
There is no question in my mind that Donald Trump was anointed by God. He is the man for this point in time. Representative Dan Newhouse, allegedly a Republican, he voted to impeach Donald Trump in 2021, but he announced on Wednesday he will not seek re-election in 2026. Decision comes with no reservations whatsoever. He said, "I'm glad to have had the opportunity to have represented my home state in Congress." Well, he didn't represent very well because most of the people in his home state, well, they voted for Donald Trump. So his upcoming departure means that Representative David Valadao, Republican of California, will be the only remaining House Republican who voted for Trump's impeachment in 2029. And that's if he wins his re-election. He's the only one left. I'd say chances of him winning are relatively slim. Newhouse was one of 10 Republicans who supported the impeachment effort. Liz Cheney, Anthony Gonzalez, Jamie Herrera, Butler, John Katko, Adam Kinzinger, Peter Mayer, Tom Rice, Fred Upton, all gone. And that just goes to show you, if you go against God's anointed, it's going to cost you something. So we're glad to see this. Trump emphasized his support for Newhouse's rival Jared Sessler as a fantastic candidate, said he will be a great congressman for Washington State's 4th congressional district. Trump said he's running against a weak, pathetic rhino named Newhouse who voted for no reason to impeach me. Well, indeed, there was no reason. It was all made-up garbage, and everybody could see that it was made-up garbage. We can only hope that the people who made that garbage up eventually face justice themselves. Sessler is a Navy vet, and he unsuccessfully challenged Newhouse for Washington's 4th congressional district. In addition to Trump, he's also backed by ultra-conservative House Freedom Caucus. So all I'm saying is, look, I'm really glad to see this. Get behind Donald Trump. He is God's man. Is he perfect? Oh, heck no. Is he our savior? Definitely not. Is he the greatest president in the history of the United States? Well, there's no question about that. Just look at the facts, because no other president in history comes even close to having achieved what Donald Trump has achieved. And finally, let's talk about that organized criminal organization known as the FBI. The FBI, of course, is a completely unconstitutional organization. It was founded by a cross-dressing pervert named J. Edgar Hoover, and he founded it in order to be able to blackmail people for his own protection. That was as good as the FBI ever got. It was straight downhill from there. And once they realized that, the FBI also decided that their main mission in life was to try to make the FBI look like a legitimate law enforcement organization. And so they spent a lot of time and a lot of money making sure that whatever TV show or movie might be about the FBI, that you would always see the FBI presented in a glorified fashion. Well, newly declassified documents show that FBI officials did not believe there was any probable cause to conduct the 2022 raid of Mara Lago, Donald Trump's home. But the Biden Justice Department and whoever was actually running the Biden administration, we still don't know for sure who that was, but we do know that Joe Biden was incapable of choosing what kind of oatmeal he ate in the morning or what color of socks to wear. So whoever was behind that, and they pushed Jack Smith's office to charge Donald Trump and his aide Walter Nata with unlawfully retaining classified documents relating to national defense. Now, I do need to remind you that the President of the United States is the one who decides what's classified and what is not classified. And the President of the United States is allowed to have classified documents. In the case of Barack Hussein Obama, over 35 million classified documents were taken back to his place in Chicago and never seen again. But nobody cared about that. On the other hand, when Joe Biden turned out to have classified documents in his garage and in his downtown office in Chinatown, well, even though there was no possible way that Joe Biden could legally have had these documents, they just glossed it over and said, "Oh, go on, nothing to see here, folks." Well, in 2023, Jack Smith's office charged Trump with having classified documents, even though he was legally allowed to have them, and there was no question about that. But at the time of the raid, Trump said he and his attorneys had been cooperating with the National Archives regarding the status of the documents, and while he was president, he had the authority to declassify anything that he had retained. FBI agents then shared the former president's view that the raid was unnecessary, lacked probable cause, and that no crime had been committed. Well, nonetheless, very little so far has developed related to who might have been responsible for making this happen. But from the interviews that have been gathered, suggesting there may have even been additional boxes of the same type that were actually already sent back to the National Archives, the FBI ignored all of that evidence. The agent noted that if the National Archives had any concerns about how the documents that Donald Trump was holding were being secured, they should have been addressed with his attorney. And what we also know now is that when the FBI showed up down there, they just threw a lot of this stuff on the floor and then photographed it, making it appear that that's how it was found, but it was not. The point is, Jack Smith and the FBI did something that was heinous, never been done before in America, and that is to go after one's political enemies and use the full power and weight of the American government to make that happen. The goal was to put Donald Trump in jail and hopefully to kill him there to make sure he would never run for president again. I have a lot more on this, but I've frankly run out of time. So let me just say Merry Christmas to you guys tomorrow. And don't forget the Saturday show.